Welcome to lesson 8 of Getting Started with Unity. In this tutorial we're going to talk all about collision detection, and this is a way of preventing your character from moving into places where you don't want them to. So that could be underwater or off your world or through an object. So here we go. So here's our world, looking pretty good. The first thing I want to do is go straight into play mode, and you'll see what happens when I walk into the water. So if the game was really advanced, we would probably be able to add some feature where we could swim or even go under the water, but we haven't got that far yet. So what happens when we go into the water is we just kind of sink underneath, and it looks kind of good, but doesn't really feel like we're swimming under the water. We just continue to walk around, and it's not quite the look we're after. So we're going to prevent ourselves from falling into the water. And the way we're going to do it is this. We're going to add something called a plane. So I'm going to go to the assets, we're going to go to game object, go to 3D object, and then we're going to come down to plane. And what the plane is imagine like just a piece of paper really, so it's just a big flat space which we're going to stretch out so that you can see it. I'm going to make it fill up the entire world. And I'm just going to bring the edges in, and I'm just going to move that across so it just fills up the world. Make it a touch bigger. Doesn't matter if it goes over the edges of the world, that's fine. That'll do. And I'm going to lift it up so that it is just sitting on the surface of the water. You'll see as I get close to the waters, there we go. Oops. It's just sitting on top of the water. That's perfect. Now, I don't want to actually see the white plane. So on the right-hand side in the inspector menu, I'm going to click Mesh Renderer. There's a little tick box there, and as soon as I click that, the object appears to disappear. It's still there. If I click in the hierarchy under plane, the object is still there, but you can't see it. Now that's really good because we can make that object solid so that you can't walk through it. And this is how you do it. In the inspector menu, you go Add Component, and we want to add Mesh. If we type in this little box here, Mesh, and what we're looking for is something called Mesh Collider. Click on that. And now that's brought this extra little addition to the plane. So it's now got this extra little thing going on with it. It's something called the Mesh Collider, which basically is the computer now knows that that object is something that you can't walk through, so you collide with it. So if I go back, press play. Now if I walk into the water, I should, depending on where exactly it sits, it should now sit just about right. So I'm not sinking anymore. That's pretty good. So I'm just it looks like I'm just floating. And every now and again, that's kind of neat. A little wave sort of appears to splash up. So it looks like I'm just sort of floating in the water, which is good. If I'm not happy, if I want to move that plane up a little bit to make it look more like I'm sitting on top of the water, I can do that. This is also really useful if I want to add a boundary, because at the moment there's nothing to stop me from walking straight off the edge of the world. So here's how I'm going to do that. I'm going to go to Game Object, 3D Object, and I'm going to choose a cube. And I'm going to stretch that cube out. First off so I can see it. There we go. And I'm going to stretch it so it's as wide as the world. And I'm going to lift it up so it's not sitting in the water, but it's sitting just above the water like that. I'll move it all the way over to the edge of the world, or wherever it is that I don't want to go any further then. So let's put it there. And just like before, I want to deselect Mesh Renderer. And The cube already comes with a collider built in. It's called the box collider, and that does exactly the same thing as the mesh collider, except it's in the shape of a box. So I shouldn't be able to walk through that object. The mesh renderer, all it does is it just makes it visible or invisible. So now if I go back to my world, I should only be able to walk up as far as that box, wherever that is. Again, I know this is really laggy, but when we publish later on, it will be better. So I'm still walking, haven't hit the box yet. Keep going, keep going, keep going. I don't know how far out this box actually is. Still going. I think I've hit the wall. If I turn around, I'll be able to see. So I shouldn't be able to go backwards any further. Nope, I'm definitely not going back any further. I'm just going sideways now. So that's one way you can stop yourself falling off the world. All I'd need to do, and I'll do this in a minute, is just create another boundary to go around each side of this world, and that keeps me safe.